The lab tech handed me the paternity results during pre-op for an 8-hour transplant. I opened the envelope assuming routine confirmation. 0.0% probability. Through the observation window, I watched my wife, 6 months pregnant, laugh with Dr. Marcus Okonkwo, the man whose cardiac procedures I'd supervised for 2 years. Her hand touched his arm. That casual intimacy you only have with someone you know well. The genetic marker chart didn't lie. That baby wasn't mine. My name is Dr. Jonathan Edward Hayes. I'm Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery at Mercy General Medical Center in Portland, Oregon, 44 years old. I performed over 3,000 heart surgeries. My hands are steady. They have to be. When you're elbow deep in someone's chest cavity, holding their heart in your palm, you can't afford to shake. But that morning, January 23rd, 2025, my hands shook. The envelope was thick medical grade paper. You could feel the weight of what was inside before opening. The clinic's logo was embossed. You could trace it with your fingertip. The pages inside were tri-folded, crisp, that distinctive hospital printer paper that smells like toner and antiseptic. When I unfolded them, they made a sharp crinkling sound that seemed too loud in the pre-op silence. The genetic marker chart was color-coded, blues and reds, probabilities listed in precise percentages. At the bottom, 0.0%, 0.00. Science doesn't equivocate. The lab tech, young woman, maybe 25, name tag said Christina, she smiled at me. Routine paternity confirmation, Dr. Hayes, for your records. She had no idea what she just handed me. No idea that she just detonated my entire life with a manila envelope and a smile. I didn't order a paternity test, but someone did. Through the OR observation window, I could see them. Stephanie, my wife of 20 years, Dr. Stephanie Lynn Hayes, chair of OB-GYN, standing close to Marcus in the hallway. Too close. She touched his arm while they reviewed a patient chart. He leaned in to point at something on the tablet. They laughed. That comfortable, easy intimacy of people who know each other's rhythms. The pages felt cold in my hands. They'd been stored in the lab refrigerator. They felt heavier than paper should feel, like they were made of lead. My pager went off. 3 sharp beeps. The distinctive tone I'd programmed 15 years ago so I could identify it in a crowd of doctors. The black plastic was warm against my hip, as always. Scratched from years of being clipped to scrubs, dropped on OR floors, shoved in pockets. The screen glowed green, code for the transplant patient, ready for surgery. Maria, one of my surgical residents, stuck her head in. Dr. Hayes, patient is prepped. Anesthesia standing by. We're ready when you are. I looked at her. 28 years old, brilliant surgeon, reminds me of myself at that age, hungry to prove herself, desperate to save every patient. She looked at my face and her expression changed. Sir, are you okay? I folded the papers, put them back in the envelope, slid the envelope into my white coat pocket, the weight of it pressed against my chest for the rest of the day. I'm fine, I said. My voice sounded normal. Clinical, controlled. 5 minutes. She hesitated. The transplant? 5 minutes, Dr. Martinez. She left. The door closed with that pressurized hiss all or prep rooms have. I stood there alone, still holding the envelope through my coat pocket. Through the window, Stephanie and Marcus had disappeared, off to deliver someone's baby, probably, off to bring new life into the world, while mine was ending. I took a breath. My mother used to say I had my father's eyes. I haven't thought about my father in years. He left when I was 9, left when he discovered my older sister wasn't biologically his. Just walked out one Thursday afternoon and never came back. My mother, a nurse, worked double shifts at this very hospital. She raised us alone, never remarried. She said she'd rather raise us alone with truth than as a family built on lies. I keep her nursing pin in my desk drawer, silver from 1972. I touch it before difficult surgeries. That morning, I wish I'd touched it before opening that envelope. I walked to the scrub room. The transplant patient was a 14-year-old girl, congenital heart defect. This was her third surgery. Her parents were in the waiting room. I'd spent an hour with them last week explaining the procedure, drawing diagrams, holding the mother's hand when she cried, promising I'd do everything I could. And I would, because that's who I am. No matter what was happening in my personal life, I don't abandon patients. I scrubbed in. The water was scalding. I scrubbed for the full 5 minutes, protocol. The soap smelled like iodine and hospital and routine. My hands were steady again. They had to be. Erin Mitchell found me in the stairwell 20 minutes later. I'd finished the surgery. 8 hours. The girl would live. Her parents cried when I told them, hugged me, called me a miracle. I smiled, said it was a team effort, told them she'd need careful monitoring, but the prognosis was good. Then I walked to the back stairwell, the one almost no one uses, and I sat down on the steps, still in my scrubs, still holding that envelope. Erin's been my surgical partner for 16 years, best friend since residency. He knows my coffee order, my schedule, the way I pace when I'm thinking through a difficult case. He knew something was wrong the moment he saw me. Jonathan. He sat down next to me on the cold concrete steps. You just pulled off one of the most complex pediatric transplants I've seen in a decade. Why are you sitting in a stairwell looking like someone died? I handed him the envelope. He read it. I watched his face change. Doctor to doctor, we're trained to maintain composure. But Erin's composure cracked. His jaw tightened. His eyes widened. Jesus Christ, Jonathan, when did you get this? This morning, during pre-op. You operated, you performed an 8-hour transplant after getting this? The patient needed me. Jonathan, what was I supposed to do, Erin? Tell that girl's parents, sorry, can't save your daughter today because I just found out my wife's been sleeping with my colleague. Medicine doesn't stop because my life fell apart. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, who ordered the test? I don't know. Stephanie doesn't know you have this? No. Marcus? I shook my head. I don't know. Maybe someone at the hospital. Maybe someone who knew and wanted me to know. Erin looked at the report again, flipped through the pages. A 0.4%, no ambiguity. This is definitive. Science doesn't lie. How far along is she? 6 months, due in March 15th. He did the math. So conception was last June. I was in Guatemala, medical mission trip, teaching minimally invasive techniques to surgeons in rural hospitals, 2 weeks. And Marcus was here. My pager went off again, code blue. Someone's heart had stopped. Erin looked at it, then at me. Can you? Yeah. He stood. I've got it. He paused at the door. Jonathan, you need to tell her you know. I will. When? Tonight. He left. The stairwell door closed with an echo. I sat there in the cold silence, listening to my own breathing. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. Text from Stephanie. Great surgery today. Heard you saved that girl's life. So proud of you. Love you. I stared at the text for a long time. Then I turned off my phone. The next morning, Rachel Torres found me in my office. Rachel's been the charge nurse in our ICU for 15 years. 39 years old, sees everything, misses nothing. If you want to know what's really happening in a hospital, ask the nurses. She closed my office door, locked it, spread a blue spiral-bound notebook across my desk. The hospital's cardiac catheterization schedule log. Daily procedure logs handwritten by different staff members, standard protocol. You need to see this, Rachel said. The schedule was open to last year, May through November. Certain entries were highlighted in yellow. Marcus's distinctive signature, the way he loops his M, the sharp angle of his O, appeared 23 times. All late-night procedures, all logged as emergent. Every Tuesday and Thursday for 5 months, Rachel said quietly. Between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m., Marcus logged emergent cardiac catheterizations. I looked at the dates. That's not unusual. Emergency procedures happen. Jonathan, she flipped pages. I pulled the patient records. Only 3 of these were actual emergencies. The other 20, stable patients. Routine procedures that could have waited until morning. He upgraded them to emergent to justify being in the hospital late at night. She pulled out another document, Stephanie's OB/GYN on-call schedule, placed it next to the catheterization log. The dates matched perfectly. Every Tuesday and Thursday that Marcus logged a fake emergency, Stephanie was also on call. Same nights, same building, different wings, but they share a hallway, Rachel said. Cardiology wing and OB/GYN wing connect through the on-call room corridor. I've seen them together, late at night. I thought they were consulting on patients. She paused. I was wrong. 23 nights, 23 coordinated emergencies. While I was home sleeping, while I was at conferences teaching other surgeons, while I was on mission trips saving lives in Guatemala, 23 nights of systematic deception. The schedule log's plastic cover flexed with a distinctive cracking sound when I closed it. The pages had that spiral binding that clicks when you flip them. It smelled strongly of hand sanitizer, the stuff nurses pump onto their hands 100 times a shift. The cover was slightly sticky from years of use. Rachel sat down across from my desk. I'm sorry, Jonathan. I thought you should know before... She stopped. Before what? Before the hospital briefing this afternoon, Helen's calling a mandatory meeting, all department heads. There's an HR complaint about Marcus, about inappropriate access to departments he doesn't work in. She met my eyes. Someone reported that he's been using your wife's department chair authority to access OB/GYN areas after hours. Who filed the complaint? It's anonymous, but HR has security footage. Keycard logs. It's going to come out, Jonathan, this afternoon, in front of everyone. I looked at the schedule log. 23 highlighted nights, each one a lie, each one a choice they made together. The plastic cover made a sharp sound when I opened it again. Ran my finger down the dates. May 12th, May 15th, May 19th, May 22nd. Over and over a pattern. Not a mistake, not a moment of weakness. A systematic affair scheduled like any other medical procedure. I looked up at Rachel. Thank you for telling me. She stood to leave, then turned back. Jonathan, for what it's worth, you're the best surgeon I've ever worked with, and the best man. Whatever you decide to do about this... She gestured at the log. We've got your back, the nurses, the good people here. We see who you are. After she left, I sat alone in my office. Through the window, I could see the hospital campus. 8 buildings, 3,200 employees, 85 physicians, 120 medical residents and students. This hospital is my life. I've worked here for 15 years, made chief of surgery at 37, youngest in the hospital's history. 3 weeks from now, the board is interviewing candidates for medical director. It's the position I've been working toward my entire career. CEO track role, the culmination of everything I've built. And now this. If you've ever discovered someone you trusted was systematically lying to you, not just one mistake, but a pattern you missed, just type betrayed in the comments. Sometimes the worst part isn't the lie itself, it's seeing how carefully they planned it, how long they maintained the deception while you trusted them completely. You're not alone in that feeling. That afternoon, I went home early. First time in 15 years I've left the hospital before 6 p.m. Stephanie's car was in the driveway. I sat in my truck for 10 minutes rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd say it, trying to find the clinical distance I use in the OR, the ability to make clean cuts without hesitation. I walked in through the garage, found her in the kitchen making dinner. She was wearing a maternity dress, blue. Her belly was prominent now, 6 months. She looked up and smiled. That smile I fell in love with 20 years ago when we were both first-year residents. That smile that used to make everything okay. Hey, you're home early. How was... She saw my face. What's wrong? I pulled the envelope from my jacket pocket, set it on the kitchen counter between us. The cream-colored paper looked stark against the granite. What's that? Open it. She picked it up, unfolded the pages. I watched her face, watched the moment she understood what she was reading. The color drained from her cheeks. Her hand went to her belly, protective, instinctive. Jonathan, 0% probability of paternity, I said. My voice was calm, clinical. That's what it says. In case you were having trouble reading the chart. I can explain. Explain what? Explain how you got pregnant by Marcus while I was in Guatemala? Explain the 23 late-night emergencies you coordinated with him? Explain which part, Stephanie? She set the papers down, carefully, like they might explode. How did you... The schedule log, Rachel showed me. She's a good nurse, pays attention. She thought I should know before HR makes it public this afternoon. Public? There's a complaint. Security footage, key card logs, Marcus using your authority to access restricted areas. It's coming out, Stephanie, today, in front of the entire senior staff. She sat down heavily, put her head in her hands. For a moment I thought she might cry, might apologize, might explain in some way that made sense. Instead, she looked up and said, "You'll sign the birth certificate." I stared at her. "You'll sign it," she repeated. "For Emma's sake, for the hospital's sake. For us." Us? There is no us. Jonathan, please, think about what this will do to Emma. She's in her second year of medical school, rotating here, shadowing you. If this comes out, if people know, they're going to know. HR already knows. By this afternoon, everyone will know. Then sign the certificate anyway. Legally claim the baby. We can keep the paternity quiet. Marcus will stay silent. We can what? Build a family on fraud? Raise a child who isn't mine and pretend everything's fine? She stood, walked toward me, put her hand on my arm. I stepped back. Jonathan, please. I made a mistake. It was a moment of weakness. It meant nothing. A moment? I picked up the schedule log from where I'd set it on the counter. 23 nights, Stephanie. That's not a moment. That's a systematic affair scheduled like any other medical procedure. It's over now. It's been over. I chose you. I'm here with you. You're here because you're 6 months pregnant and stuck. That's not the same as choosing me. I looked at her belly, at the life growing inside her. A child who'd never asked to be part of this. Who deserved better than parents who built a family on lies? I thought about my father. How he left when he discovered my sister wasn't his. How that abandonment shaped my entire childhood. How my mother worked herself to exhaustion raising us alone. How she said truth was more valuable than pretend family. I looked at Stephanie. At this woman I'd loved for 20 years. At this stranger I didn't recognize. I cut out disease for a living, I said quietly. I excise infections, remove cancers, repair damaged organs. You're asking me to implant disease into my legal identity, to sign a document that makes me legally responsible for another man's child, to commit fraud. I shook my head. I won't do it. Then what? You'll just abandon us? Abandon your family? My family? I gestured at her belly. That's not my family, Stephanie. That's Marcus's child. You made that choice. Now you want me to sign paperwork pretending you didn't. That's not abandonment. That's refusing to participate in fraud. She stared at me. Then something changed in her expression. The pleading stopped. Her voice went cold. If you don't sign that certificate, you'll destroy everything. Your reputation, Emma's future, the medical director position, everything you've worked for. Maybe, but I'll still have my integrity. Integrity doesn't pay the mortgage, Jonathan. Integrity doesn't explain to your daughter why her father blew up their family over pride. I pulled my hospital ID badge from my pocket, the lanyard in navy and silver. 15 years of service. My photo from when I was 29. Younger, hungrier, so certain about who I was and what I wanted. The plastic was smooth but tacky from years of daily use. It made that distinctive clicking sound when I set it on the counter. "I'm not blowing up our family," I said. "You did that the first time you texted Marcus at 11:47 p.m. while I was in surgery. You did that every single one of those 23 nights. This is just me refusing to sign my name to your choices." I walked out, got in my truck, drove back to the hospital. My pager went off twice during the drive. I ignored it both times. First time in 15 years, I've ignored a page. When I got to the hospital, Helen Parker, our CEO, was waiting in my office. 68 years old, former trauma surgeon, built this hospital into what it is today. She's been my mentor since I arrived as a resident. She recruited me personally, made me chief of surgery, put me on track for medical director. She stood when I entered, closed the door behind me. "Jonathan, we need to talk." The hospital briefing that afternoon was mandatory. 200 staff members packed into the main conference room, department heads, senior physicians, administrators, residents. Stephanie was there in the front row, Marcus 3 seats away. They weren't looking at each other, both staring straight ahead like this was any other meeting. Helen stood at the podium, went through the usual updates, budget reports, new equipment, policy changes. Her voice was steady, professional. But I could see the tension in her shoulders. Finally, she said, "We have a personnel matter to address. An HR complaint was filed regarding improper access to restricted departments. Our security team has reviewed the footage and access logs. This is being investigated according to hospital policy." She didn't name names, didn't have to. Every person in that room who'd worked here more than a month knew exactly what she was talking about. The whispers started immediately. After the briefing, Helen asked me to stay. When everyone else had filed out, she closed the conference room door, put a folder on the table. "Jonathan, someone filed a complaint about Marcus Okonkwo accessing the OB/GYN wing inappropriately. About him using Dr. Morrison's using Stephanie's department chair authority to bypass security protocols." She paused. "Is there something you need to tell me?" I took a breath and I told her everything. Helen listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, security logs, keycard access records. "Jonathan, I need you to know that the board has been aware of irregularities. We didn't have confirmation until today, but we've been monitoring the situation." "You knew?" "We suspected. Marcus is brilliant in the cath lab, but he's been boundary challenged. We've had complaints before, minor things. Inappropriate comments to nurses, using his position to access areas he shouldn't. Nothing we could act on, until now." She pulled out another document. "This arrived this morning from our hospital attorney, Margaret Channing. Legal discovery from preliminary divorce proceedings." "I haven't filed for..." "Someone did, on your behalf, this morning." She slid the document across the table, and Margaret obtained these through expedited court order. It was a printout, 89 pages, text messages between 2 phone numbers. The header identified them: Dr. Stephanie Morrison's cell phone, Dr. Marcus Okonkwo's cell phone, chronological, time-stamped, certain messages highlighted in pink. I started reading. The stack made a substantial thud when I picked it up. It smelled like office printer ink, slightly acrid. The yellow highlights made the pages slightly waxy to touch. Standard copy paper, but the weight of 89 pages felt heavy in my hands. Margaret appeared in the doorway, 55 years old. Been our hospital attorney for 12 years. Sharp mind, sharper instincts. "Jonathan," she said quietly, "I'm sorry you have to see this, but you need to know what we're dealing with, legally and professionally." I flipped through the pages. Messages going back 13 months. Casual at first, then intimate, then explicit. Meeting times, locations. The on-call room on the 3rd floor. The parking garage. Once, horrifyingly, the hospital chapel. Then I found page 47. Margaret had highlighted her in bright pink. Impossible to miss. February 14th, last year, Valentine's Day, 11:47 p.m. Stephanie, he's in OR, emergency transplant, 8 hours probably. Finally get you alone. Marcus, on my way. Where? Stephanie, on-call room, 3rd floor. He'll never know. Marcus, be there in 5. God, you make me crazy. Stephanie, bring protection. Can't risk anything. The timestamp, 11:47 p.m., February 14th. I was 3 hours into an 8-hour emergency heart transplant. The 14-year-old girl whose parents sent me that thank you card this morning. The surgery that made the medical journals. The technique I developed, minimally invasive valve replacement, that's now being taught in medical schools across the country. While I was elbow deep in that child's chest cavity, racing against time, Stephanie and Marcus were texting about meeting in the on-call room. I kept reading. The messages continued throughout that night, timestamps showing their movements, GPS data embedded in the photo attachments, redacted by the court, but the location tags were visible. On-call room, 3rd floor, Mercy General Medical Center, more messages, more timestamps, patient names mentioned, HIPAA violations. Marcus discussing a cardiac procedure while texting Stephanie about what he wanted to do to her later. A patient coding while Marcus was distracted. I set the pages down carefully. My hands were shaking again. That transplant, I said quietly. That was the surgery that changed my career. The parents, they sent me a card this morning. You gave us our daughter's life back. You are a miracle. I have it on my desk. Margaret sat down across from me. Jonathan, those text messages show HIPAA violations, patient information. GPS data proves they were intimate on hospital property during working hours, while both were technically on call. She paused. And the timestamps show a pattern. Marcus was distracted during critical procedures. We're going to have to review his cases. Look for patient care compromise. Aaron appeared in the doorway. Jonathan, we have a problem. What now? Tomorrow's schedule. You and Marcus are both assigned to the same case. Mrs. Patterson, valve replacement with cardiac catheterization support. It's a joint procedure, surgical and cardiology working together. He paused. You can't both be in that OR. Helen stood. Dr. Mitchell is right. We need to reassign. No. I stood, picked up my ID badge from where it sat on the table, clipped it to my belt. Mrs. Patterson is my patient. I've been managing her case for 3 months. She trusts me. I won't abandon her because of this. I looked at Helen, and if you pull me off the case, it tells everyone that I'm the one at fault, that I'm the one who needs to be removed. Jonathan, I'll handle it professionally. The patient comes first. That night, I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I drove to the hospital at 2 a.m., went to the chapel, the place Stephanie and Marcus had desecrated with their affair, sat in the back row. The chapel was empty, silent, just me and the weight of everything I'd learned. 1 year ago, exactly, February 14th, I'd performed that transplant. The surgery that proved my technique worked. That saved a child's life. That made my career. And while I was doing that, while I was being the best version of myself, Stephanie was texting Marcus, planning their meeting, counting the hours until I was done. I pulled out my phone, found the card the girl's parents had sent. They'd attached a photo. Their daughter smiling, alive, healthy, a year post-op. The mother had written, Dr. Hayes, you gave us our daughter's life back. You are a miracle. We thank God for you every day. You'll always be part of our family. I looked at the Valentine's Day text printout I'd brought with me, at the timestamp. 11:47 p.m., 3 hours into the surgery. I saved her life that night, I whispered to the empty chapel. And they were... I couldn't finish the sentence. Aaron found me there at 4 a.m. Didn't ask what I was doing. Just sat down next to me in the pew. We sat in silence for 10 minutes. Sometimes the best thing a friend can do is witness your pain. Finally, he said, "You don't have to do the surgery tomorrow. I can take it. Mrs. Patterson will understand." "No, I need to do this. I need to prove that I can still do my job, that this hasn't broken me." "Jonathan, you're allowed to be broken right now." "I don't have that luxury. Not yet." The next morning, day 4 since I got the DNA results, I scrubbed in for Mrs. Patterson's valve replacement. The OR was tense. Everyone knew. The nurses, the residents, the anesthesiologist, the entire hospital was talking about the HR complaint, about security footage, about department heads and affairs and scandal. And now I had to work with Marcus. He was already in the OR when I entered, standing at the cath lab monitors, reviewing Mrs. Patterson's cardiac imaging. He looked up when I walked in. Our eyes met for the first time since I'd learned the truth. He looked away first. The surgery should have been routine. I've done hundreds of valve replacements. Marcus has done thousands of catheterizations. We've worked together dozens of times. We know each other's rhythms, where to stand, how to communicate, when to anticipate the next move. But that morning, everything was wrong. The patient was under, chest open, her heart exposed. I was midway through the valve placement, the most delicate part of the procedure, when Marcus moved too close. His shoulder bumped mine. Not hard, just enough to disrupt my concentration. "Space," I said quietly. "Sorry." He didn't move back. I continued working, focused on the valve, on the precise placement, on the sutures that had to be perfect. Mrs. Patterson's life depended on it. My pager went off, still clipped to my scrubs under my surgical gown, the vibration distinct. 3 sharp beeps muffled by fabric. I ignored it. Marcus was supposed to be monitoring the catheterization, making sure blood flow was optimal, watching the screens for any irregularities. Instead, I could feel him watching me, tense, waiting. The surgical resident, Maria, she noticed. I saw her glance between us. The charge nurse noticed. Even the anesthesiologist was looking uncomfortable. "Dr. Okonkwo," I said. My voice was perfectly calm, clinical. "I need the catheter pressure readings." "Pressure is stable." "Numbers. 120/80. "That's blood pressure." I asked for catheter pressure. A pause. He checked the screen. "Sorry, 15 millimeters mercury." He'd been distracted, not paying attention, during a surgery, during my surgery. I looked at him across Mrs. Patterson's open chest. Our hands were inches apart, both of us gloved, both of us supposed to be professional, both of us knowing what we knew. "Dr. Martinez," I said to the resident, "page Dr. Rodriguez from cardiology. Tell him we need additional monitoring support in OR 3. "Dr. Hayes," Marcus started. "Now Dr. Martinez." Maria hesitated, looked at the charge nurse. The charge nurse, Linda, been working with me for 10 years. She nodded at Maria, made the page. Marcus stepped back from the table. "Are you questioning my competence?" "I'm ensuring optimal patient care. If you're unable to focus on this procedure, I need someone who can." The room went silent. Everyone watching, everyone knowing this wasn't about medical competence, this was about everything else. Dr. Rodriguez arrived 6 minutes later, older cardiologist, steady, reliable. He took one look at the situation and understood immediately. "Dr. Okonkwo, I can take over from here if you need to address other cases." Marcus looked at me, then at the patient, then back at me. "Fine." He stripped off his gloves, threw them in the biohazard bin. They made a sharp snapping sound. "I have other patients." He left. The OR door swung shut behind him with that pneumatic hiss. The surgery continued. Dr. Rodriguez's monitoring was flawless. Mrs. Patterson came through beautifully. Perfect valve placement, strong cardiac output. When I closed, my hands were steady. They always are in the OR. It's the one place where I can still control everything. After surgery, I was in the scrub room cleaning up when my pager went off again. This time I looked. Emma, my daughter, my 21-year-old daughter who's in her second year of medical school, who's rotating at Mercy General, who shadows me when she can, who wants to be a surgeon just like her father. She was outside the OR, waiting for me. Emma has my eyes, my determination, my perfectionism. For 21 years, she's watched me work, studied how I think, how I approach problems, how I treat patients. She's told everyone who'll listen that she's going to be exactly like her father. Now she was standing in the hallway and her face was pale. "Dad, we need to talk." We walked to the hospital cafeteria, found a corner table away from everyone else. She didn't order anything, just sat there, gripping her medical student ID badge. The lanyard in different colors than mine, student blue instead of attending Navy. "Everyone's talking," she said quietly. "The medical students, the residents, everyone." "Emma, they're saying Mom had an affair, that the baby isn't yours, that you're refusing to sign the birth certificate, that there's going to be a huge scandal." She looked up at me. "Is it true?" I didn't answer immediately, just looked at my daughter, my brilliant, intense, passionate daughter who's built her entire identity around becoming like me. "Yes," I said finally. "It's true." She was quiet for a long moment. "The baby isn't yours?" "No." "Does Mom know you know?" "Yes." "And you're refusing to sign the birth certificate?" "Yes." "Why?" Her voice rose slightly. "Dad, everyone's saying you're abandoning Mom and the baby, that you're choosing pride over family. My preceptor pulled me aside this morning, asked if our family issues were affecting my clinical judgment, my performance evaluations." She stopped, breathed. "I've worked so hard, and now people are looking at me like I'm part of this scandal." "Emma, I don't understand. You teach grace. You teach compassion. You tell your residents that medicine is about putting patients first, about rising above personal problems. And now you're..." She stopped herself. "I'm what?" "You're making this public. You're refusing to just handle it quietly, sign the certificate, keep it private, move on." I leaned back in my chair, looked at my daughter, at this young woman who'd spent 21 years trying to be exactly like me, who was now questioning whether being like me was the right choice. "Emma, there are things you don't understand yet." "Then explain it to me, Dad. Help me understand why you're doing this." But I couldn't. Not yet. Not here in the cafeteria with medical students 3 tables away. Not when she didn't know the full story. Not when telling her the truth would force her to see her mother differently. "I can't," I said. "Not yet. But I need you to trust that I'm doing what's right." She stared at me. Then she stood up, picked up her ID badge. "Everyone's saying you're cold, unforgiving, that you can't let go of your pride." Her voice cracked slightly. "I've spent 21 years trying to be exactly like you, Dad. Precise, principled, dedicated. And now people are saying those things make you cold, that you can't forgive, that you choose ego over family." She waited for me to say something. I didn't know what to say. "I based my entire identity on being your daughter, on becoming the surgeon you are." She paused. "And now I don't know if that was stupid." She walked away, didn't look back. I sat there alone in the cafeteria, watching her disappear into the crowd of medical staff. My pager went off. I ignored it. 2 weeks later, Stephanie went into early labor. She was only 34 weeks. The baby was coming early. Her OB called me, protocol, since I was listed as her spouse and emergency contact. I was in my office reviewing case files when the page came through. Dr. Hayes, your wife is in labor, delivery room 4. She's asking for you. I drove to the hospital, parked in my usual spot, walked through the main entrance, took the elevator to the maternity wing. The entire time, my mind was running through scenarios, legal implications, social implications, what happens when I refuse to sign. The delivery room was busy. Stephanie's OB, Dr. Lisa Warren, competent physician, good bedside manner, was already prepped. 2 nurses, an anesthesiologist, standard setup for a C-section delivery, and Stephanie, on the surgical table, belly exposed, 6 months pregnant, becoming 7 months, becoming right now. She saw me enter. Jonathan, thank God, I need you here. I stood near the door, didn't approach the table. Dr. Warren looked between us. The tension was obvious. Dr. Hayes, would you like to... I'm here as her emergency contact, not as the father. The room went very quiet. A nurse approached. She was holding a clipboard. The top page was cream-colored legal paper, heavier than regular paper. Oregon Department of Health and Human Services letterhead, multiple sections, boxes for medical information and parental details, signature lines highlighted in yellow, the birth certificate. Dr. Hayes, the nurse said carefully, hospital protocol requires the birth certificate to be completed within 24 hours. We typically have fathers sign immediately after delivery, for your convenience. I won't be signing. Stephanie's head turned toward me. Jonathan, I'm not the father. I won't commit fraud by claiming legal paternity. Dr. Warren intervened. Dr. Hayes, perhaps we should focus on the delivery first. The baby is showing signs of distress. We need to proceed with the C-section. The procedure began. I stood against the wall, watched clinical detachment. This wasn't my surgery, wasn't my child, wasn't my life anymore. The baby was born at 2:37 p.m. Healthy boy, 6 pounds, 4 ounces, strong lungs. He cried immediately. Good sign. The pediatric team assessed him quickly. APGAR scores were good. Dr. Warren held him up for Stephanie to see. He's beautiful, perfectly healthy. Stephanie was crying. Jonathan, look at him. I looked. He was beautiful, innocent, a child who'd never asked to be part of this, who deserved better than parents who'd created him through betrayal. The door to the delivery room opened. Marcus pushed through. Security tried to stop him. He shoved past. That's my son, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. That's my son, and you're not keeping me out. The room erupted. Dr. Warren yelling for security, nurses moving between Marcus and Stephanie, the anesthesiologist trying to keep Stephanie calm while her blood pressure spiked. I stepped forward, put myself between Marcus and the surgical table. You need to leave, I said quietly. Now. That's my child, Hayes, my son. You don't get to... You're compromising patient safety. You're disrupting a medical procedure. Leave. Now. Or I'll have security remove you by force. We stood there, face to face, 2 doctors who used to work together, who used to respect each other, who used to be colleagues. You can't heal what you refuse to diagnose, I said, quiet, just for him. That's what you told me once about patient care, about facing difficult truths. So here's a difficult truth. That child is yours. You created him. You're responsible for him, but I'm not going to sign paperwork pretending you didn't. Security arrived, took Marcus by the arms. He didn't resist, just looked at Stephanie, at the baby, at me. I'll be back, he said. For my son, I'll be back. They escorted him out. The nurse approached me again, still holding the clipboard, the birth certificate on top, yellow highlights bright under the delivery room lights. Dr. Hayes, the father's signature. I'm not the father. I won't sign that document. I left, walked out of the delivery room, through the maternity wing, down the elevator, out to my truck, got in, sat there, and I didn't feel anything. No anger, no sadness, just empty. 3 days later, the hospital board called an emergency meeting. 15 board members, department heads, legal counsel, patient advocates, hospital chaplain, community representatives, Margaret Channing presenting the legal situation, Helen Parker trying to maintain order, James Whitmore, chief of medicine, 62 years old school physician who values reputation above everything. He spoke first. "This is a private matter," he said firmly. "Dr. Hayes should handle this quietly. For the hospital's sake, for his family's sake, we don't need this scandal. We need to protect our reputation." Margaret stood. "With respect, Dr. Whitmore, this stopped being private the moment it involved hospital resources, security violations, and potential patient care compromise. We have legal obligations, ethical obligations." "What we have," James shot back, "is a messy divorce that's becoming public spectacle. Dr. Hayes could sign the certificate. The marriage could end quietly. No one needs to know the details." Helen held up her hand. "Let's hear from Dr. Hayes." All eyes turned to me. I stood, pulled the USB drive from my pocket. Silver metal, hospital branded, labeled minimally invasive valve replacement, Hayes method for medical residents. "This is my surgical teaching video," I said. "I made it 3 years ago. It's used in medical schools across the country now. In it, I teach precision, integrity, leaving no margin for error in medicine." I set it on the table. "Helen, would you play Minute 14? She plugged in the USB. The video played on the conference room screen. My voice, recorded 3 years ago, younger, more certain, filled the room. "Medicine is built on truth," Video Jonathan said. "When we sign a medical document, a death certificate, a birth certificate, a prescription, we're putting our name to truth. Our signature is our oath. It says, this is accurate. This is factual. This is what I stake my career on. You cannot be a good physician if you're willing to sign lies. Not even small ones. Not even convenient ones. Because medicine doesn't have room for convenient lies. Patient lives depend on truth." The video paused. "I taught that," I said to the board. "I believed that. I still believe that. And now you're asking me to sign a birth certificate claiming paternity of a child who isn't mine, to commit fraud, to put my signature, my oath on a document I know is false." James stood. "Jonathan, that's different. That's not a medical document. That's a legal... It's both. Birth certificates are medical legal documents signed by physicians under penalty of perjury, and I won't sign one that's false. Even if it costs you everything?" James gestured broadly. "Your marriage, your reputation, the medical director position, everything you've worked for." I thought about my mother, about her nursing pin sitting in my desk drawer, about the choice she made to raise us alone rather than build a family on lies. "Yes," I said quietly. "Even then, because integrity doesn't work part-time. You either have it or you don't. You either tell the truth or you don't. There's no middle ground." The board voted, 7-7, split down the middle. Half wanted me to handle it quietly. Half wanted to support my position. Then Mrs. Chen spoke. She was a patient advocate, community representative. Her 14-year-old son had been one of my patients 3 years ago, congenital heart defect. I'd performed his surgery using my new technique. He'd lived, thrived. "I vote we support Dr. Hayes," she said firmly. "My son is alive because this man doesn't cut corners, not in surgery, not in life." She looked at me. When my boy was on that operating table, I didn't want a doctor who took convenient shortcuts. I wanted a doctor who did everything right, even when right was harder. She turned to the board. "If Dr. Hayes signs that certificate knowing it's false, what does that say about his judgment, about his integrity? Do we want a medical director who will sign convenient lies, or do we want one who tells the truth even when it costs him everything?" The room was silent. "I vote truth," she said. "I vote for Dr. Hayes." The meeting ended, 8-7 in my favor, support for my position. But it felt hollow, because the cost was still there. the scandal, the whispers, the damage. That board was split 7-7. Half wanted Jonathan to handle it privately, protect the hospital's reputation, avoid the scandal. Half wanted truth and accountability, even if it cost them. If you were on that board, what would you vote? Support Jonathan and truth. Type truth in the comments. Or protect the hospital's reputation quietly. Type quiet. What would you do? Both choices have costs. Both have reasons. Mrs. Chen voted truth because Jonathan saved her son's life, and he didn't cut corners then. She trusted he wouldn't cut corners now. That's what made this moment so powerful and so hard. But that vote didn't save Jonathan from what came next. That evening, I left the hospital late, walked out to the parking lot. It was raining. That cold Oregon rain that cuts through your jacket and chills you to the bone. Emma was waiting by my truck. She'd been crying. I could see it even in the rain. Her eyes were red. Her hair was wet. She'd been standing there a while. Dad. Emma, what are you doing out here? You're soaked. I need to say something, and you need to listen. I stopped, waited. Everyone's talking, she said. Her voice was shaking. The medical students, the residents, my preceptors, everyone's saying you're abandoning mom and the baby, that you're choosing pride over family. She paused. That you're cold, unforgiving, that you can't let go of your ego. Emma, my preceptor pulled me aside yesterday, asked if our family issues were affecting my clinical judgment, if I was too emotionally compromised to continue my rotation. Tears were mixing with rain on her face. I've worked so hard, Dad. 4 years of pre-med, top of my class, MCAT scores, medical school. Every single day, trying to be good enough, trying to be like you. She took a step closer. I spent 21 years watching you, learning from you, building my entire identity around being Dr. Jonathan Hayes' daughter, the surgeon's daughter, the one who's going to follow in his footsteps, be exactly like him. Her voice cracked. And now people are asking me if I'm just like you, and they don't mean it as a compliment anymore. The rain kept falling. I could hear it hitting the pavement, hitting my truck, hitting both of us. Maybe being like you was a mistake, she whispered. It felt like being cut open without anesthesia. She walked to her car, got in, drove away, didn't look back. I stood there in the parking lot, in the rain. My pager went off. 3 sharp beeps. Code blue. Someone's heart had stopped. Someone needed me to be steady, reliable, professional. But I couldn't move. For the first time in 15 years, I couldn't make myself respond to that page. Couldn't make myself walk back into the hospital. Couldn't make myself be Dr. Jonathan Hayes, Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery, the man who never breaks. I just stood there. And I cried. Aaron found me 20 minutes later, still standing in the rain, still crying. He didn't say anything, just put his arm around my shoulders and stood there with me. Sometimes the best thing a friend can do is witness your pain. 4 days later, the Oregon Medical Board held a formal hearing. These hearings are rare. They're reserved for serious violations. Threats to patient safety, ethical breaches that can't be ignored. The board consists of 5 physicians, 2 public members, and a legal counsel. They have the power to suspend licenses, end careers. Marcus and his attorney were there. Stephanie had been called as a witness. Helen was present representing the hospital. Margaret sat beside me, her files organized in neat stacks on the table. The investigator was a thin man in his 50s, former surgeon himself. He'd been reviewing Marcus's case for 3 weeks. He stood at the front of the hearing room and opened a thick manila envelope. Confidential, stamped in red across the front. Members of the board, he began. Our investigation into Dr. Marcus Okonkwo has revealed a pattern of concerning behavior. He pulled documents from the envelope. In 2022, Dr. Okonkwo's privileges at Cleveland Clinic were suspended following an inappropriate relationship with the OB/GYN department chair. The relationship resulted in patient care compromise. 3 patients filed formal complaints. The room went silent. Dr. Okonkwo's employment was terminated. His settlement included a confidentiality clause and a recommendation that he seek employment outside of Ohio. The investigator turned a page. The settlement was sealed. Most hospitals conducting background checks would not have access to this information. He looked directly at Stephanie. However, Mercy General Medical Center never contacted Cleveland Clinic for references. Why? Because Dr. Stephanie Morrison, in her capacity as OB/GYN department chair, had unilateral authority to waive standard background verification for cardiology hires. She exercised that authority when hiring Dr. Okonkwo 18 months ago. Helen's face drained of color. I watched her grip the edge of the table. Dr. Morrison, the investigator continued, you hired Dr. Okonkwo knowing he would be subject to background checks. You waived those checks. Did you know about the Cleveland situation when you made that decision? Stephanie was pale. Her attorney whispered something to her. She leaned toward the microphone. I was told Dr. Okonkwo left Cleveland for personal reasons. I didn't know the details. But you waived the background check. It was an urgent hire. We needed cardiology coverage. The paperwork was taking too long. The investigator pulled out another document. This is Dr. Okonkwo's application to Mercy General. Under the section marked previous employment issues, yet in Taurus, he checked no. Under disciplinary actions, he checked no. Under malpractice claims or settlements, he checked no. He looked up. All 3 statements were false. Marcus's attorney stood. Those settlement terms included non-disclosure. My client was legally prohibited from lying on a medical credentialing application. The investigator's voice was sharp. Medical ethics supersedes settlement agreements. Dr. Okonkwo had an obligation to disclose previous disciplinary actions. He chose not to, and Dr. Morrison chose not to verify. He set down more papers. Our review of Dr. Okonkwo's cases at Mercy General has identified 4 instances where his attention during critical procedures was demonstrably compromised. In 3 of those cases, patients experienced complications that required additional interventions. He paused. We've contacted those patients. 2 are considering malpractice claims. I sat there listening to the systematic destruction of Marcus's career, watching him shrink in his chair, watching Stephanie realize the full extent of what she'd enabled. Marcus had done this before, I said quietly to Margaret, and Stephanie knew. She had to have known. Margaret nodded. Pattern predator. Cleveland wasn't his first incident either. We found sealed settlements from 2 other hospitals, Atlanta in 2021, Miami in 2019, same pattern each time, inappropriate relationships with senior female physicians, patient care compromise, quiet settlement, move to a new city. The medical board chair spoke. Dr. Okonkwo, this board finds sufficient evidence of ethical violations, patient care compromise, and fraudulent credentialing. Your privileges at Mercy General Medical Center are hereby revoked. We are recommending suspension of your Oregon medical license pending full investigation. He turned to Stephanie. Dr. Morrison, your role in waiving standard verification procedures and your relationship with Dr. Okonkwo represent serious breaches of professional conduct. We are recommending you step down from your position as department chair immediately. The gavel came down. It was over. Marcus left the hearing room without looking at anyone, his attorney trailing behind, already on his phone with what I assumed was a moving company. You don't come back from this, not in Oregon, probably not anywhere. Stephanie sat frozen in her chair. Finally, she stood, walked past me without a word. I didn't watch her leave. That afternoon, Rachel found me in my office. She closed the door, locked it. Jonathan, we need to talk about Emma. What about her? She's struggling. I saw her in the hallway this morning. She looked exhausted, like she hasn't slept in days. Rachel sat down. She doesn't know the full story, does she? About the Valentine's Day texts, about Cleveland, about the pattern. I couldn't tell her. How do you tell your daughter that her mother... You don't have to. I will. Rachel, she needs to hear it from someone who isn't you. Someone who can be objective. Someone who witnessed all of it. Rachel pulled out her phone. I'm going to call her, ask her to meet me, and I'm going to tell her everything, with your permission. I thought about Emma standing in the rain. Maybe being like you was a mistake. Thought about her building her entire identity around being my daughter. Thought about how this had shattered her world. Yes, I said finally, tell her she deserves the truth. Rachel found Emma in the hospital chapel, the same chapel where I'd sat at 2 a.m. a month ago, the same chapel where Stephanie and Marcus had met during their affair. Rachel sat down next to Emma in the back pew, didn't say anything at first, just sat there. Then she pulled out a folder. Inside were copies. The catheterization schedule log, printed sections of the Valentine's Day texts, timestamps visible, explicit content redacted, the HR complaints, the medical board findings. Emma, Rachel said gently, I need to show you something, and I need you to listen, really listen, before you judge your father, before you decide who he is. She spread the documents across the pew, explained the timeline, 23 coordinated nights, February 14th, the transplant, the texts sent while Jonathan was in surgery, Cleveland, Atlanta, Miami, the pattern. Your father knew all of this, Rachel said. From the beginning, the DNA test, the schedule log, the Valentine's Day texts, everything, and he never told you. Do you know why? Emma shook her head. She was crying silently. Because he was protecting you. He didn't want you to see your mother this way. Didn't want you to have to choose sides. Didn't want your medical school experience destroyed by scandal. Rachel put her hand over Emma's. Emma, when you stood in that parking lot and told him being like him was a mistake, he was carrying all of this alone, and he let you believe he was cold, let you believe he was unforgiving, because protecting you mattered more than defending himself. Emma was silent. For 7 full minutes she didn't speak, just stared at the documents, at the highlighted dates, at the timestamps. Finally she whispered, he knew all this. And he didn't tell me to hurt her. He was protecting me. Yes. I called him cold. I called him unforgiving. Her voice broke. And he was protecting me the whole time. What kind of daughter does that make me? The kind who needs to call her father right now. Emma picked up her phone. Her hands were shaking. She dialed. I answered on the first ring. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. The legal resolution happened quickly after that. In medicine, we talk about cascade effects. One intervention triggering multiple consequences. That's what happened next. Within 3 weeks, I filed for divorce. Oregon law allowed fault-based grounds. Adultery qualified. Margaret handled everything. Stephanie didn't contest. What could she say? The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus lost his privileges at Mercy General. The medical board suspended his Oregon license. He moved to Arizona within a month, took a position at a small clinic, accepted paternity of the baby, a boy, healthy, named Ethan. The custody arrangement gave him primary custody once he established stable housing. Stephanie had supervised visitation rights. I established a medical trust fund for Ethan, not as a father, as a doctor who doesn't let children suffer for adults' mistakes. The fund would cover his health care, education, whatever he needed, but I wasn't his father. I wouldn't pretend to be. Stephanie resigned her position as department chair. She kept her OB/GYN privileges, but her reputation was destroyed. 3 months later, she took a position at a smaller hospital 2 hours away. Fresh start, new community, people who didn't know. The hospital implemented new policies, mandatory background checks, no exceptions, no waivers, 2-person verification for all senior hires. It wouldn't prevent every problem, but it was something. And me? The medical director position went to someone else. The board felt the scandal, even though I'd been vindicated, was too fresh, too distracting. They offered me a different role instead. Chief of Surgical Ethics, teaching position, oversight of resident education, ethics committee chair, less administrative power than medical director, but more direct impact on training the next generation of physicians. I accepted. 4 weeks after the medical board hearing, Emma found me in the surgical skills lab. It was late, almost midnight. The hospital was quiet. Most staff had gone home. Just security guards and night shift nurses and the occasional doctor catching up on paperwork. I was practicing sutures. Not because I needed the practice. I've done thousands of surgeries. My hands know the movements. But sometimes the repetitive motion helps me think, helps me process. Emma came in quietly, stood in the doorway watching. I looked up. "Hey, sweetheart." "Hi, Dad." She walked over, looked at the practice pads I was working on. "Can I join you?" "Of course." We worked in silence for a few minutes. Her sutures were good, precise, careful. She had steady hands, surgeon's hands. Finally, she said, "I'm sorry for what I said in the parking lot about being like you being a mistake." "Emma, no, let me finish." She set down her instruments. "I spent 21 years watching you, learning from you, building my entire identity around being Dr. Jonathan Hayes' daughter. And when everything happened, when people started talking, I panicked. I thought maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe the person I'd been trying to become wasn't who I thought he was." She looked at me. But Rachel showed me everything, the timeline, the texts, the Cleveland history. And I realized you knew all of that from the beginning. And you never told me. You let me believe you were cold, unforgiving. You let me stand in that parking lot and call you those things because you were protecting me. You're my daughter. Protecting you is my job. Even when it costs you everything? Especially then. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I watched you in the OR last week, pro bono surgery, uninsured immigrant child with a heart defect. I watched you spend 6 hours, giving that child the same care you'd give anyone. You didn't cut corners because you were tired or distracted or heartbroken. You were perfect." She started crying, and I realized that that's the integrity I've been trying to learn from you, the kind that doesn't bend when it's convenient. "I'm sorry I doubted you, Dad." I pulled her into a hug. First time in weeks I'd hugged my daughter. She held on tight. "You didn't doubt me," I said. "You just didn't have all the information. That's different." We sat back down, picked up the instruments, started suturing again, the repetitive motion, the familiar rhythm. After a while, I reached into my desk drawer, pulled out a small silver pin. It was tarnished around the edges, but still beautiful. The Red Cross emblem in the center. If you turned it over, you could see the tiny engraving. Mercy General School of Nursing class of 1972. "This was your grandmother's," I said. "She wore it every day for 30 years. Emma took it carefully. "I barely remember her. She died when I was 5. She was a nurse here, this hospital. She worked double shifts to put me through medical school. My father left when I was 9. He discovered my older sister, your Aunt Sarah, wasn't biologically his. He just walked out one day, never came back. I never knew that. Mom raised us alone. She could have remarried, could have found someone to help, but she said she'd rather raise us alone with truth than as a family built on lies." I paused. She understood something I'm just learning, that medicine is sacred, that our oaths mean something, that some legacies are worth protecting even at great cost. I took the pin from Emma's hand, pinned it carefully to her white coat, right over her heart. "Your grandmother would have loved to see this moment, to see you becoming a doctor, to see you choosing this path." I stepped back, and she'd be proud of you for choosing truth over convenience. That's all she ever wanted for me. That's all I want for you. Emma looked down at the pin, touched it gently. I'll make her proud, Dad. I'll make you proud. You already have, sweetheart. You chose truth when it was hard. You stood up for what was right, even when you didn't understand all the reasons. That takes courage. She hugged me again. We stood there in the skills lab for a long time. Just father and daughter, surgeon and future surgeon. 2 generations of integrity passed down through a small silver pin. Finally, she pulled back, smiled. So what now? Now? I picked up my pager, the same black plastic pager I'd worn for 15 years. Scratched, worn, reliable. I unclipped it from my belt, held it in my palm. It was warm from being against my body. Light, but substantial. This thing has interrupted every important moment for 15 years, I said. Ruined dinner dates, missed birthdays, your high school graduation. But every time it went off, someone needed me to be better than my problems. I held it out to her. Now it's your turn. She took it carefully, clipped it to her own belt. The moment she did, it went off. 3 sharp beeps. She looked at the screen, then at me. She smiled. Code from the ICU. Patient needs assessment. Better go. She headed for the door, stopped, turned back. Dad, thank you for not taking the easy way out, for showing me what integrity actually looks like. Thank you for giving me another chance. She left. I watched her go, watched her become the doctor she was meant to be. 6 months later, I'm in my new office, Chief of Surgical Ethics, smaller than my old office, but it has better light. Windows facing the courtyard, I can see the trees, watch the seasons change. I teach now, full-time, surgical residents, medical students, ethics seminars, grand rounds presentations. It's different from being in the OR every day, but it's good, important. I'm shaping the next generation of physicians, teaching them not just how to operate, but how to think, how to choose, how to maintain integrity when the world is watching. Emma matched into cardiothoracic surgery, same field as her father, same hospital. When the residency director asked her why cardiac surgery, she said, because my father showed me that being a surgeon isn't about steady hands, it's about steady principles. She wears the nursing pin every day. I see it on her white coat when she makes rounds, when she assists in surgeries, when she sits in ethics lectures taking notes like her life depends on remembering every word. 3 generations now, my mother, me, Emma. A legacy of integrity passed down through a small silver pin and hard choices. I tell my students, medicine is about knowing what to cut and what to save. In surgery, in life. Some diseases you can cure, some you have to remove. The hard part is knowing the difference. They write it down, think it's about medical decision making. Maybe someday they'll understand it's about everything else too. Last week, Aaron and I were grabbing coffee in the hospital cafeteria. He asked how I was doing, really doing. I'm okay, I said, and I meant it. No regrets? I thought about that. About everything I'd lost, the marriage, the medical director position, the easy path I could have taken. No, I said finally. No regrets. I cut out the disease. It hurt. But the healthy tissue is thriving now. He smiled. That's the worst metaphor you've ever used. I'm a surgeon, not a poet. Thank God for that. We laughed. First real laugh I'd had in months. Jonathan and Emma redefined what family means, not who you're born to, but who shows up when truth costs everything, who stands with you when standing is hard. If you've ever had someone, maybe not biological family, but someone who chose you, who stayed when others left, tell me about them in the comments. I want to hear those stories. And if this story moved you, if it meant something, subscribe. I tell stories about truth, integrity, and the cost of doing what's right when the world is watching. I'll see you in the next one. Yesterday, Emma and I were in the skills lab again, late night, both of us practicing technique. She's preparing for her first solo valve replacement next month. She's nervous, excited, ready. We worked in silence for a while. Then she looked up. Dad, are you okay? Third time someone's asked me that question. First time in months I could answer honestly. Yes, I said, I'm okay. And I was. The nursing pin caught the light as Emma moved, silver and red against white fabric. Hope passed down through generations. Truth protected at great cost. A legacy worth more than any position, any reputation, any convenient lie. She went back to her sutures, precise, careful, steady hands, surgeon's hands, just like her father, just like her grandmother before him. Some things you inherit through blood. But the important things, integrity, courage, the ability to choose truth over convenience, those you inherit through choice. Emma chose. She chose to stand with truth. She chose to be the kind of doctor who doesn't cut corners. She chose to wear that pin every day as a reminder of what matters. The light caught the pin again. Tiny flash of silver and red. Hope passed down. Truth protected. A family rebuilt on solid ground. I had to diagnose the disease in my marriage before I could heal from it. That's what I tell my students now. That's what I learned. You can't heal what you refuse to diagnose. Surgery taught me that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is cut away what's destroying healthy tissue, even when cutting hurts, even when people watching don't understand why. But the tissue that survives, it grows back stronger. Emma looked up from her practice pad, smiled at me, the nursing pin glinting in the light. Ready for another round? She asked. Always. We picked up our instruments, father and daughter, surgeon and surgeon, 2 generations working side by side in the quiet of late night, building skills, building legacy, building the future one precise suture at a time. Outside, the hospital hummed with life. Patients healing, doctors working, nurses caring, the eternal rhythm of medicine continuing, crisis and recovery, diagnosis and treatment, truth and consequences. I'd cut out disease for a living, and finally, I'd cut it out of my life too. The healthy tissue was thriving, and that was enough.